Welcome back to the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Max Renk. In today's episode, we're diving back into a topic that's been gaining a lot of momentum across the agriculture industry, drone technology. But this time, we're looking at it through a different lens. Instead of just talking about what drones can do, we're hearing directly from growers and operators who are using them every day to understand how they got started, where drones are making the biggest impact, and what they've learned along the way. Joining me today are Ryan Oberbrockling and Matt Hatcher, who have integrated drones into their farming operation and later started a drone dealership to service the eastern side of Iowa, and Michelle Bork, who's built out a drone application business alongside her farm. Throughout this conversation, we'll break down where drones fit, where they don't, and how this technology is continuing to evolve. Let's dive in. We're going to be talking about drones. And first things first, we'll start with some introductions. Ryan, go ahead and introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about your operation here.
I'm Ryan Oberbrockling. We farm in northeast Iowa on the Iowa Mississippi River. We farm corn, soybeans. We had trucking business, and we custom raise hogs. And my dad on the farm here has been a dealer for Renk Seed for 50 years.
Okay, so just dabbling in a few things, huh?
Yep, just a couple.
And Matt?
Yeah, I'm Matt Hatcher. I've been here at the Oberbrockling farm for, I started when I was 16, so I don't want to date myself a little bit too much, but I've been pushing about 30 years now, helping them off and on, part-time, full-time. Had opportunity to come back to the farm full-time here 5 years ago and jumped in. And one of the things we started to explore at that time was application with drones and feasibility of that on the acres here in northeast Iowa. So that's one of the first projects I tackled as we came back was entering into that drone application area.
Ryan and Matt jumped into drones from the farming side, learning, testing, and figuring out where it fits into their operation. Michelle took a different path, building a drone application alongside her farm. Let's bring in her perspective.
Michelle Bork. I'm from Wamedy, Wisconsin area, so in between La Crosse, Eau Claire, Wisconsin on the western side. We have a drone operation. My dad and I, we do it together. So we have 3 drones that are fungicide drones between 5-gallon tank all the way up to a 20-gallon tank that we operate with. We also farm on the side, do a lot of cash cropping, have a little beef.
And how's your operation evolved over the years? How many acres do you farm? How many head of beef you got now?
Well, the evolution of our farm when I was younger, it was just a dairy farm. And actually, prior to that, my grandpa had the farm and they had multiple different livestock, different animals there. The standard, 1950s to 1970s, you pretty much...
You did everything?
You did everything, you had everything, and it was fun. But it's still fun. When I grew up, it was a dairy. So we milked anywhere between 70 to, at times, upwards of 110, 120 head. When I graduated college a few years later, we actually sold the dairy and went to raising Holstein steers and cash cropping. During that time, I was gone, but the family farm continued on, and we decided to get more into the grain market, cash cropping, and we established a bin setup with dryers and stuff like that to really expand and diversify our operation. And then from there, we are now at about 150 head of beef today, Holstein steers, feeder to finish. And my dad and I, we farm in the range of about 1,400 acres together. Okay. And with my uncle and my cousin in the mix, we're about 2,500 to 3,000 acres total that we run.
Yeah, that's a great look at how your operation has evolved. Ryan, let's get back to you. When did drones first enter the picture on your farm?
So I think it was 4 years ago. We had a neighbor that bought some drones, so we hired him to do our spraying. And Matt and I followed him around about every day, and we just watched and learned and asked questions, a million questions to him. And just seeing the drones work over a helicopter or an airplane, we're in a very helicopter area. That's usually what we always have. So being able to watch the drones fly, follow the contours of the hills, and be able to get closer to the tree line, stuff like that, for us has been huge. Having him do it, and now Matt on the application business, that's what really started us going.
What was really the driving force for bringing drones here?
Yeah.
Like, what was your decision point?
So our biggest thing is just the application and the efficiency of them versus a helicopter. Nothing wrong with a helicopter, they were great. Just we got big tree lines and bigger hills. We can't quite get closer to those tree lines, and they're swooping down 80, 100 feet off the crop. It's just as fast as they're moving. Drones excel more in that space.
Matt, what did that learning curve look like from your side?
Ryan hit a lot of the good points earlier. I think it's just a timing aspect of it. We can pull the trigger when we want to go, not when the helicopter airplane's in our area. We make the decision. Today we're going to do this field, this field, this field. We can go whichever order we want based on when the varieties are maturing, things of that nature, versus the helicopter's here for this week. We got to spray everything in this honestly 2-3 day window with the amount of acres we probably have is what they give us for time. So
And how many acres is it you farm here?
Between 4,000 and 5,000.
Okay. Definitely some acres to cover that really creates that window.
Yep. It's like Matt said, I mean, timing's huge. If we want to go do it tomorrow or the next day, we can. You know, we have to wait 4, 5, 10 days. And the helicopter's here, he's back. So
That timing piece keeps coming up, and it's clearly a big driver. Michelle, your story about getting into drones is a little different. How did you get started?
Oh, that's a fun one. Dad went to a farm show and he called me up on his way home and said, I bought a drone. I'm like, good for you, Dad. What are you going to do with the little guy? Thinking I was just a little drone. He's like, you got to learn how to spray fungicides because we're going to fungicide our whole operation this year and you're going to be the pilot. So that's how we got into drones. Dad saw it at a farm show, I think in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, if I'm not
WPS?
mistaken. Yep. Ordered a drone, and that's where we are today. Now we're 3 drones deep, and last year we did about 8,500 acres. The year before was about 5,000 acres, and our first year we were about 3,000 acres is what we applied.
And what are you contracted for this year?
About 10 to 12,000 is on the books right now. But of course, it depends on how the season goes, what people actually plant, what Mother Nature throws our way. Usually we end up higher than we expect.
Always, of course.
So we're expecting to beat our last season every year, and we're 3,000 more each season. Just happened.
So you've scaled this pretty quickly. Ryan, let's talk about how you're actually using drones day to day. What's the primary application?
So our main focus is fungicide, insecticide, just everybody is for the most part, but you can use it for a little bit of a rescue if you want for herbicide application. There's a little bit of cover crop going on with that. Our main use is a fungicide.
And Matt, why is it generally just a fungicide application?
for the row crop acres, that's pretty much what we've seen the advantage of, like say the fungicide, the insecticide, the rescues. We grow some non-GMO soybeans and corn, so sometimes getting in and a little bit different timing than when commercial applicators around has helped us out. There is also opportunity from a custom applicator side. Right now, a lot of guys are starting to spray pastures or go in and interseeded pastures. We just got a half-inch of rain last night. Maybe can't get a ground rig out there to interseed, but you could have got in right before that rain with the drone and, interseeded some clover or something into your pasture. So there are opportunities out there beyond just the row crop applications of the drones.
So fungicide is clearly the backbone, but there's more starting to happen here. Where else are you seeing drones add value, Michelle?
We did do a little bit of cover cropping. We did do some rye coverage, especially on some of our hills and stuff like that.
When you were saying your rye coverage, were you covering like spraying acres of rye or were you interseeding with the drones?
Both.
Okay.
I've done both.
And how's the interseeding worked?
So the interseeding, actually, one season it did really well because we got moisture in the fall. The other season it didn't do so well because it dried out pretty bad, and unfortunately it didn't get a good stand. But the spring it really came through and actually looked okay in a decent stand, but it really depends on Mother Nature. So in the aspect of the aerial application of drone interseeding, I believe it does very well. It's just Mother Nature making sure that you get that germination and that moisture.
I just was curious on how effective the actual interseeding portion was.
Oh, it was amazing. When we actually got moisture, the stand was beautiful. It was perfect. But the season when there was no moisture, yes, you could tell. It was spotty, and it wasn't spotty because the drone missed, because you could actually go out and see the seed out in the field and make sure that you had a decent stand. It just, unfortunately, it didn't really germinate till the spring.
So with all of that in mind, where do drones really shine compared to other application methods?
I mean, the drone really shines in that low volume rate work, that 2, 3, 4 gallon rate, typically is your fungicide, insecticide, crop protectants. As they're getting bigger now, we're starting to see drones that are getting upwards of 30 gallons and lift capacities up to 300. So one of the things I'm excited about as we get into that space of drones is the potential to be able to get out and do some in-season, maybe like fertility work. A sample, be able to get into corn and put urea on at maybe an 80 or 100 pound rate. Because now I could do 3-4 acres a pass versus right now that'd be 1 acre a pass with the drones we currently have. So as the size improves and the efficiency improves, I think there's going to be more of that in-season work that'll be available. We could get in there and do some micronutrients in spots if we needed to, liquid or dry in season, based on plant tissue examples or plant tissue analysis or soil samples.
Let's talk about what this actually changes on the farm. What efficiencies have you gained that you weren't expecting?
A lot of people own their own ground rigs and everything like that think, oh, I can just, go about the canopy, go a little bit earlier. But really when it comes down to it, the timing around that VT to, that reproductive or dry or brown silk stage is really critical timing. Getting those high boys in at that time when the tassels are out and when everything's pollinating, usually they rub on the surface of the sprayer and you just don't get that good coverage. In my opinion, get aerial is going to be your best coverage, and making sure you get that prop wash and get everything pushed down into that canopy and really get that dispersion of the product to really maximize the coverage. So, if you have the capability to get a drone out there, I say it's far better than just the ground rig when it goes back in, because, you have that risk of causing crop damage.
As far as efficiencies, probably we actually spent more time because we're out there spraying at a time of year when we're not typically working. So it fit in well into our schedule, but it's not a 9 to 5 job by any means. It's before the sunrise, so sometimes after the sun sets job. But the biggest efficiencies we gain is just the timing, like we've talked about, being able to get in when we want to do it, and being the most effective with our application. From a standpoint of revenue, obviously, you're spending time you get a drone and a tender considerably less than you would be trying to buy a helicopter or airplane. So definitely some cost savings that way if you're looking to get into it on your own, or even a ground rig. For example, a Hagee or a high clearance Miller type sprayer is going to be several $100,000 more than a drone setup would be.
So that's the operational side, but there's another piece to this too. Michelle, what has this opened up for you beyond just application?
It's the funniest thing. We've learned so much about different farming practices and what people experience and what they do on their farms just by sitting there and talking to them for the few hours that you're on their farm, getting to know them, getting to know what they do on their farm, understanding their tillage practices and how we can maybe implement some of their things that they've learned onto our own operation. So I really feel that my dad and I, he's the ground crew and I'm, the pilot. He gets to spend a lot of time with the guys at the ground and learning about what other farmers do. And we learned so much about contracting, insurance, and farming practices. And I learned about how to farm llamas. Who the heck knows how to farm llamas? But that was awesome. Or, goat farms and all this random stuff. It's just broadened my understanding of agriculture in general.
Which I think is really cool, and it's a great way to be involved in those communities.
Oh, I love it. Everything, even down to their irrigation practices. And we don't have irrigation on our farm or any of my neighbors' farms, but just learning about it is fascinating. Mm-hmm. Every bit of it.
Ryan, coming back to you.
If you can get more efficient with one drone, it's going to cut the cost back a little bit, hopefully.
Because right now, are you running 2 people for the tendering unit?
Yep, so 2 drones, 2 people. And maybe in the future, maybe it's 1 person, 1 drone, maybe 1 person for 2 drones. That's going to shave down some man hours.
The more automated things get too, as we go down the road, like we talked about, being able to land and refill on their own, being able to recharge eventually on their own. Maybe in the future you have a smaller trailer, smaller tender, you just park it at the edge of the field. And the drones are already pretty autonomous. You give them their boundaries, you give them their parameters, and they pretty much conduct the mission, and you're just there for emergencies and refilling and tendering them. So if we can get a lot of those pieces more automated, eventually you may just be parking a trailer at the edge of the field, going to the next field with another trailer, and you're just moving these trailers each field each day. I think that's a little ways down the road, but if you start to look at, truly autonomous of it, I think that's going to come. And I think that's really where the big efficiencies will be gained. The more autonomy in the mixing, filling, charging, all that gets laid out, it's going to be less man hours and more efficient.
Michelle, from your side, running more of a service-focused setup, how does that compare to what you're seeing?
Everything that I've flown the last 3 years, I can go back and look at each one of those fields. I can look at the flight pattern I had. I can look at every single detail of each one of those fields. It even tells you the height I flew above the canopy and how fast I was going. It tells you every detail about my flight pattern. But I can reload those same maps and ready to go.
We've covered a lot of the upside, so let's balance it out here. Where do drones not fit, or where do you run into challenges?
So limitations, military bases, and airports. You can't fly in them. You just can't. There's a lot of areas. I flew over in Rochester, Minnesota area quite a bit the last couple of years. And you wouldn't think Rochester Airport's that big, but it's a lot bigger footprint than you would expect once you look at a map and you say, this is all restricted flight zones. Having awareness of some of the no-fly zones that we have around airports, around military bases, and any of that kind of stuff. For the most part, I don't think that there's any other limitations to a drone besides just the accessibility to get to that field, to that farm.
Looking ahead, there's a lot happening in this space. Where do you see drone technology going next?
we're experimenting with some of this fun biological stuff with a lot of the agronomists and a lot of the nuanced ideas of how we can go from good to great. It's just seeing what we can do and evolve it from there.
For you guys, this has grown beyond just your own operation. How has this turned into more of a business or a service?
So at first, it was just buying the drones, doing the application yourself. And then we evolved in a couple of years later, developing with Terraplex is who Matt bought his drones from. So they asked us if we wanted to be the eastern side of Iowa, the sales and service. So we agreed to that, and we're Terraplex Great River. So it's our sales and service of this side of the business. And then Matt provides the application side. So Terraplex is originally headquartered out of Odebolt, Iowa. It's the western side. That's been a great team effort.
And so you must have a very different problem set, though, than your western side of Iowa with just topography, correct?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, they're rolling like we are, but their hills are a little longer and not quite as sharp and steep as ours are. Our topography is a little bit different than that side.
But that lets you really represent as a dealership better over here.
Yep. And we strive for sales, and not only sales, but service. That's our main hitting point.
That opens up a whole different side of things, not just flying, but supporting others. What does that look like day to day?
During the off season, Ryan is handing right on with me, hands on in the service side of things quite a bit. We have another guy here that helps us with that as well. But not only service, just support in general. I take a lot of the phone calls. Hey, try this, try that, and then along with those phone calls, we've got the compliance piece of it. So we're able to guide you through do a lot of the FAA paperwork for you and help get that submitted, help you through some of the state requirements. Obviously, you still have to take all your tests and pass those, but everything else, we have an internal compliance person that can basically make the easy button and walk you right through getting your FAA certifications and your state certifications. So you're doing it the legal and right way.
Does the regulation really change that much state to state?
So the first year, I actually lived in Iowa, but I had my license in multiple different states. The one thing that is unique from a normal farmer that has his own private license or commercial license to spray pesticide is he needs to additionally get an aerial application with it. And each state's different in terms of how they test for it. And each state is different in terms of row crop versus fungicide application versus herbicide application. Some states are different in type of product you're applying. Wisconsin, being I live in Wisconsin, I get my license in Wisconsin, and we get reciprocity, is what it's called.
Yep.
So I can get in Minnesota, Iowa, but you can get reciprocity. So the application license that I have in Wisconsin for aerial and row crops covers the requirements for Minnesota and Iowa, as long as I make sure that I apply for that reciprocity properly.
As you gain more experience, it sounds like there's a lot more nuance than people expect. What are the details that actually matter when it comes to getting a quality application?
One of the things that we've learned along the way is your spray pattern or your width is pretty important. So just like with a ground rig, you want to test it, make sure all your nozzles are good. You want to do the same thing with the drone of pattern testing. And like what we found worked best, they advertised my drone can do 30 foot wide. What we found is it actually sprays about 25 really well. Okay. And so we set ours to 25 foot width. So one of the things that I've got an app on my phone, and I can go out and use a water sensitive paper, lay it out, we'll lay out 100-foot swath of it, fly the drone over one spot and take a picture of every one of them. And it'll give me that graph back so I can actually see the variance in the spray pattern droplet size amongst the entire swath. So then we could truly come up with a right recommendation for that drone for pattern. The manufacturers might say 45 feet. Well, at what height? Is that at 12 feet? Is that at 16 feet above the canopy? Where's that at? We kind of like to form our own opinion on that. And I'd say ground truth it a little bit better than probably most do.
And is that a per drone thing, or is that a per field / crap? I mean,
yes, and yes. So each drone is going to be different based on if it's a 4-copter, 8-copter, how wide the spray nozzles are apart, where they're located, how they're designed. So every drone, they're going to advertise a whip. In perfect situations, you could probably get there. What we have found is probably 80 to 85% of that advertised width is probably more realistic. The other thing we've seen is the speed the drone travels makes a difference on that. So if you're flying at 20 miles an hour or 30, once you get above about 30, it seems like the pattern narrows up a little bit just from how fast the drone's going. It doesn't get out far enough. It kind of condenses back in. So speed has a piece of it. Height has a piece of it. So if you're flying 12 foot or 16 foot, that has an impact on it. And then what's your ground like as you're flying? That drone's looking straight down and it might be flying at 14 feet. Right above where I'm at now, but if you're on a hillside, it might be 20 foot on the low side and 10 foot on the high side of where it's actually at. So you got to Now you take some of that into consideration too as you look at your width and your height.
One thing we noticed this year, we had most everybody did in the Midwest, but southern rust was a huge disease this year. And maybe, like Matt said, maybe you spray 25 feet, and maybe you go out a couple weeks after or whatever it was, and you kind of see that green corn, kind of brown corn, green corn, you see that pattern out there. One thing, like Matt was saying, the height and the width, but downdraft, I think, is also an important player in that. Right below, you might have really good downdraft, you might get really good coverage, maybe down towards the ear leaf versus on top of the leaves. Further out, you don't quite get that full downdraft, and it's just the penetration of the spray.
The drones help basically penetrate the canopy with how close they're flying.
Yep. Same as a helicopter.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're pushing a downdraft on it, so.
Yeah, get some more penetration, which really makes your fungicide work harder than it normally would.
So when you get those guys, they're advertised as a 30 or 35 foot, it might be applying it, but it's just not quite getting the full downdraft further down in the canopy. So you say, oh, you didn't cover it. Well, it did, but it just depends on how much penetration it can get. That's one thing I learned this year.
As you heard from Ryan, Matt, and Michelle, drone technology isn't just about having another tool. It's about gaining more control over timing, improving application efficiency, and opening the door to new opportunities both on and off the farm. Whether it's making faster decisions during critical windows, reducing reliance on outside scheduling, or even building out a new service offering, drones are starting to play a bigger role in how operations run day to day. At the same time, it's clear this technology is still evolving. From automation and efficiency gains to expanding use cases in fertility, cover crops, and beyond, there's a lot more ahead. Thanks for listening. I'm Max Renk, and this has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast.
Be sure to hit subscribe for a notification when a new episode drops each month, and follow Renk on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. This has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast, innovating agriculture one seed at a time.